More than 1,000 years ago, in the valley of the Brahmaputra River in India, there lived 6 men. 6 wise men. All of them were blind. The first wise man knew the deepest mysteries of spirituality. The second had the knowledge of the secrets of harmony. A third one mastered the sense and essence of life with his wisdom. Another one held the serene wisdom of solidarity. The fifth man knew everything about complementary oppositions of nature. And the last one, the wisest of them all, knew the paths to reach nirvana. The 6 wise men competed against each other to show who was the wisest. One day, immersed in an endless discussion with opposite views about the exact shape an elephant had, they decided to solve the dilemma and go and look for one in order to touch it, feel it, and thus to be able to describe it. They asked, they were guided, and they walked in a single file for days through mountains, deserts, and plains until they got to a thick forest. Suddenly, they found an elephant in front of them, a large elephant which they approached to touch. The first of the wise blind men got closer to the side of the animal without noticing it and touched it. Later he exclaimed, "The elephant is like a wall of mud dried by the sun." The second wise man, skeptical of what he had listened to, moved forward with precaution, stretched his hand and touched one of the elephant's tusks. He said, "No, the elephant is exactly like a lance, no doubt." So the third one tried to satisfy his curiosity and approached to touch it too. He turned around and touched the animal's trunk. "Brothers, the elephant is neither a wall nor a lance. It's large and cold like a serpent." The rest of the wise men silently disagreed, and the fourth one got closer shyly and touched its tail. "I've got it! The real shape of an elephant is like an old rope." Faced with so many different options, the fifth wise man decided to prove by himself the shape of the elephant by touching one of its ears with his hands. None of you is right. An elephant is like a big fan. Finally, the last one, and wisest, approached the elephant slowly and touched one of the legs. "Brothers, right now I'm touching the elephant, and I can assure you that the shape is like a huge palm tree." After each of them experimented how an elephant was, they returned by the same road thinking how wrong their fellow wise men were and how sure of their opinions each was. All of them were partly right, but none was absolutely right.
This is a version of the popular Indian story of the 6 blind men and the elephant, which is about the danger of considering life from only one point of view. It warns us that what we see will always be part of a whole, just shape, mere show, appearance in need of confirmation. That is how the East looks to many Western people, like a show whose inner nature is not known. There is a job that, strangely enough, can be found in the world today. In Calcutta, it's not rare. There, the rickshaw pullers work. They pull carts with their feet and hands, and they carry people from one place to another in return for a handful of rupees. They carry their livelihood. They pull their carts like horses. The horsemen, that's how they're known. They survive in the streets of the city doing back-breaking work that is not understood by the Western world. A job done by men, and only the poorest ones. They work under very difficult conditions, consigned to the lowest rung of society. They know this, and we know this. Buddhadeb Bhattacharya the chief minister of West Bengal, said in 2006 that Westerners try to associate beggars in these rickshaws with the Calcutta landscape. But this is not what Calcutta stands for. Calcutta stands for prosperity and development. The same year, Bikash Ranjan Bhattacharya, the city mayor, warned that this inhumane mode of transportation should have been ended years ago. Today, thousands of these men pulling their carts are still seen on the packed streets of Calcutta. Indian leaders have been unable to fully eradicate this practice, and the West looks at it as a show that causes embarrassment to many who can't understand why the government can't end such a practice. Many Western people do not understand how a society tolerates this type of transport. They find it hard to understand how the weakest, neediest, poorest people lead their lives this way. From the West, questions arise. How can someone tolerate this kind of work? Why does society allow this? Who does this type of job? This is Salim. These are his hands. This is his rickshaw. He will be our guide and our protagonist, a rickshaw puller performing his daily routine. Destruction, liberation, renovation, words associated with the goddess Kali. The city of Calcutta is named after the goddess Kali, the place of Kali. Sunrise has the power of renovation, of liberation and destruction of darkness. Destruction, liberation, renovation. Another sunrise in Calcutta. Calcutta wakes, the day begins. February 2013. Salim begins his work routine. We accompany him and see how he lives. But perhaps the details of Calcutta in those moments provide a window through which to witness something more interesting. How does our Western perspective influence what we are seeing? What are we looking at? What are we really seeing when we witness a life like Salim's? The world never stops. Neither do those February days. It happened to be 2013, but it could have been any other year. In the rest of the world, the show went on. Unemployment was rising in the US. The financial crisis was devastating Europe, and promises for recovery were being made. The show went on, as it did for Salim and his rickshaw. Salim's day-to-day went on as well, regardless of what was occurring elsewhere in the world, just like the Beatles song, A Day in the Life. But what do we perceive when we look at India, at Calcutta, at Salim? How can we really understand Salim's life without looking within the Indian culture, into its soul?
the main characteristics of Indian culture, to respect the adults, the older peoples, to respect the older peoples. If they are older, we respect the older peoples. If they are having the same age, we should be like a friends. We'll be like a friends with them. And if they are smaller than us, we share love and affection with them. And one more character is to respect to other religions, the persons of other religions, and to live and let live. We live and let live in a peaceful harmony with love, affection, and peace of mind, like friendly nature. It is the meaning of Indian culture.
In parts of the West where competition is king and success is measured by continuous economic growth, a culture based on mutual respect and pacific harmony might be considered naive. There is no doubt that India is a mysterious world to Western eyes. The first Prime Minister of India, Nehru, wrote, "India is an idea, a dream, a vision, yet very real and present, a dream and a mystery in the wakefulness of our reality." Researcher Jean-Roger Rivière notes two reasons that prevent us from understanding this country and its culture. One is that the West has been fed on the Greek and Roman culture and is thus affected by their legal, political, and social ideals. The West inherited its empirical and scientific knowledge from their philosophical thinking. The second reason is that the foundation of Indian culture is rooted in a dramatically different view. The sacred is together with the profane, the spiritual not separated from the worldly. All is one.
There is no Eastern thought, anthropologically speaking, but there is something common in every Indian cultures. They are practiced by several ethnic groups who are residing in India. That's the encouragement in diversity. That means always people are allowed to what they want to practice. This practice includes their regional, their traditional cultural practices, and at the same time they also practice certain aspects which may be termed as Eastern or Pan-Indian. In this way, the Indian thought culminates a certain type of unity among the diversified Indian cultures and ethnic groups.
The people of this land have their roots in the Harappa civilization, the Vedic civilization, the Magaki, Kushan, Jarsha, Chalukya, or Maratha empires, the Nanda, Maurya, Gupta dynasties, Islamic sultanates, Mongoland, Sikh Empire, and Portuguese, French, British, and Dutch colonies. India has almost 30 official languages and approximately 2,000 dialects. An ancient and polyphonic culture radiates from its streets, full of stories ready to be told. Stories written by a 1,000-year-old culture mixed with the eyes of new generations that accept change and progress, but are also part of traditional culture in an organic and natural way. India is a country where people live with the known and cliched sacred cows. A country where shaking your head means yes. Where men walk hand in hand without raising eyebrows. Country where Hindus, Buddhists, Jains, Jews, Christians, and Muslims live together without any wall between them. It is a holy land for millions of people. A country of thousand-year-old customs that took root in ancient times but are still followed. One of them is the Bindi tradition, familiar to many, the red dot that decorates many foreheads. Wearing the bindi, also called a tilaka, is a custom with different meanings. A red dot that represents acceptance of reincarnation, or the dot through which the sun rays converge into our body to give us energy, or the meaning upon which the relationship with the West is built, a symbol for the third eye of the god Shiva. God has given us two eyes to watch the physical world, and a third symbolic one, the eye of the soul, to watch the spiritual world. The eye, the look, the image, these are central themes of Western culture, to the point that it may be considered ocular centrism. The spectacular West, everything is prepared to be watched, to be gazed at. Nothing escapes the West's attention. Everything is consumed by devouring eyes, except the immaterial, the spiritual. Perhaps this ocular centrism is simply an effort to emulate Shiva, to be like a god. Returning to Salim, let's consider what he does while the world turns. Salim was born in the north of India, close to the frontier with Nepal. He has been working with his rickshaw for 40 years. His is a penetrating look, from a pure soul. He always has a kind and grateful smile on his face. The right hand is symbolic. In India, it is very important for Muslims and Hindus. The right hand is the one that gives food, the one that handles money, the one that receives things. The left is used for less elevated matters, such as personal hygiene of parts of the body not considered decent. The left is also the one used for touching things in contact with the ground. The one used, for example, for taking shoes off. Walking at a normal pace, Salim covers around 5 or 6 kilometers per hour. Salim works from morning until night. Considering how many years he has worked pulling his rickshaw, by now he could have encircled the world twice. Maybe, in order to understand why this mode of transport still exists, we have to consider the relationship between the West and the East. Or perhaps considering this relationship only goes as far as to help us understand why we see what we see. Salim will never retire, unless he gets enough money, which is improbable, or his body begs him to stop.
काम तो 1972 से कर रहे हैं, 40 साल के करीब करीब हो रहा है। यहाँ कोई नहीं काम नहीं किया। बिहार में तो सब काम करते हैं, खेती गृहस्थी, खेती बाड़ी का टोटल काम किया, माल मवेशी रखा, लेकिन कलकत्ता में सिर्फ रिक्शा ही चलाया। मेरा उम्र 62 है, 62। आदमी चढ़ाने का कोई लिमिट तो नहीं होता है, ये पैसा कमाने का है। कोई एक आदमी ही 100 रुपया 200 रुपया दे देता है, कोई आदमी 20 रुपया देता है। आदमी का कोई लिमिट नहीं है, 25, 30, 35 भी हो सकता है। किसी रोज 2 ही 4 मिलता है, उसका कोई लिमिट नहीं है। लेकिन पैसा 300, 400, 300, 400 हर रोज होता है। बिजनेस यानी 400, 300, 400 एवरी डे, पर डे। वो तो सुबह बिस्तर से आदमी उठता है, पहले मुंह हाथ धोता है, नहाता सोता है, उसके बाद में नाश्ता करता है। नाश्ता करके गाड़ी लेके काम में चले जाते हैं। जब कमाया फिर 1-2 बजता है तो 2 बजे 12 बजे का आदमी खाना खाता है, 1:30 बजे 2 बजे खाना खाया, फिर कस्टमर आया, फिर काम धंधा करता है। रात का टाइम में 11 बजे रिक्शा का बिजनेस फिनिश करके ख़त्म करके खाना खा के जाके सो जाते हैं। 3 टाइम तो खाना खाना ही होता है, मेहनत का काम है, इसमें तो खाना ही खाना होता है। अभी ठंडा का टाइम में घर में सोते हैं, गर्म के टाइम में तो रोड में भी सो जाता है। आज टाइम में रोड में ही सो जाता है, हवा लगता है। आना बोल रही ये जगह बोलो तो एक मिष्टी एक चाय 5 जगह दिलो, मैं जगह बोलो बोल रही।
होगा नहीं
थोड़ा आगे कर लीजिए ना, थोड़ा आगे करवाइए।
As a foreigner, it seems that it's something hard to accept. It's a bit shocking at first to see someone working working in that way and trudging through the streets, often without shoes, pulling you. But it's an integral part of the city, and it's a livelihood for, I think, 5, 10, 20,000 people, most of which are from outside of the state, outside of West Bengal.
টানে দাঁড়ানো হলো বয়স্ক লোকেরা রিক্সা টানে হেঁটে হেঁটে এই গরমের সময় খুব বাজে, ভালো লাগে না। তো এর জন্য এদের কোনো একটা অন্য কোনো কাজের ব্যবস্থা করে দিলে খুবই ভালো হয়। হ্যাঁ, তা এদের জন্য যে অন্য কোনো কাজ, যেরকম বসে কোনো ঘরে বসে কোনো কাজ দিলে বয়স্ক লোকদের, তার জন্য খুবই ভালো।
We don't think wrong. If the people used to think it wrong, it couldn't continue over 100 years. And the reason is that, India is till today a somewhat poverty-stricken country. So here earning livelihood is very difficult. So these people pulling the rickshaws, they are earning their livelihood. It's fair, it's honest. And on the other hand, the people don't mind, and they are allowed. This type of work is allowed in our social system. So cart pulling or this type of work is totally banned from the country. Then the government has the responsibility for the proper rehabilitation of these people, to give them a new type of earning. So long these are not arranged, so long the rehabilitation is not done, I think it's unethical for the people to think that this is dehumanizing type of work. I have no right to think it as dehumanizing. After all, they are doing their honest work, they are working, they are providing physical labor, and they are earning money.
बीवी है, भाई है, बहन है, लड़का है, लड़की है, पूरा ऑल फैमिली है। इसको गारंटी नहीं ना चलाते रह जाएंगे लाइफ टाइम ले। हेल्प देने वाला लड़का हो जाएगा, इसको छोड़ करके अपना बिहार बैठ जाएंगे, खेती बाड़ी का काम करेंगे। ये गांव मेरा है बिहार के अंदर, पूर्वी चंपारण। पटना से 4 घंटा बाई बस का रास्ता है, नेपाल का बॉर्डर। नाम है पूर्वी चंपारण। इसे मोतिहारी मोतिहारी बोलता है आदमी, लेकिन असल नाम लिखता है पूर्वी चंपारण। नहीं, अभी तो हम रेस्ट नहीं कर रहे हैं। 15 दिन 20 दिन होता है तो 1-2 घंटा के लिए आराम कर लेते हैं, सो जाते हैं घर में जा कर के, लेकिन और पूरा दिन के लिए छुट्टी नहीं करते हैं। अभी तो मजबूरी है थोड़ा, इसलिए छुट्टी नहीं करते हैं। बीवी का तबीयत ख़राब है जब से ना, आराम नहीं कर रहे हैं। गाड़ियों पर 1-2 घंटा सो जाते हैं। नहीं, अच्छा नहीं लगता है। मजबूरी में कर रहे हैं तो अच्छा कहाँ से लगेगा। उम्र इतना हो गया, ये तो मजबूरी के तहत का दूसरा कोई काम नहीं होगा, दूसरा कोई हमसे काम नहीं होगा इसके सिवा। इसका हमको हैबिट हो गया हुआ है। इसमें कमाते हैं 200-400 रुपया हो जाता है, दूसरा काम में 200-400 रुपया तो नहीं देगा, सीखना पड़ेगा। शौक से नहीं चलाते हैं, मजबूरी में चला रहे कि नहीं कमाएंगे तो हमारा बच्चा लोग छोटा छोटा कहाँ से खाएगा, कहाँ से हम उसको चावल खरीदेंगे, कहाँ से सब्जी खरीदेंगे, क्या करेंगे। मेडिसन है बीवी का, बच्चा लोग का दवा है, इस महंगाई में क्या करेगा इंसान। कोई किसी को हेल्प तो नहीं दे देता है, बैठा बैठा नहीं खिला देगा, मेहनत करना पड़ेगा। कोई भी काम कीजिए, बिना मेहनत का पैसा नहीं होता है, इसलिए मजबूरी में चला रहे हैं। नहीं, हमारा नहीं, रिक्शा ऑनर का है। एवरी डे 25 रुपीज़ रिक्शा ऑनर पेड, 1 वीक 175 रुपीज़। नहीं, हम रिक्शा कैसे खरीदेंगे? हम खरीदेंगे तो घर चले जाएंगे, इसको कौन देखेगा? ये तो मालिक का है, हम देखे गए, दूसरा चलाया, दूसरा आया, तीसरा चलाया, मालिक का है। गिरेज है, हर कुछ है। जब तक है हम चला रहे हैं, जब जाने का टाइम होगा उसके गिरेज में हम पटक देंगे, जब अपना चलाएगा समझेगा। तकलीफ क्या, वो एक्सीडेंट हो जाता है आदमी का, तो लाइफ ख़त्म हो जाता है। बहुत आदमी एक्सीडेंट हो गया, किसी का पैर टूट गया, कोई मर गया, ये तो ऊपर वाला ही बचाता है। नंगा पैर चलता है, पाँव में कुछ हल जाता है, कहीं गाड़ी मार दिया, पैर टूट गया, ये तो बहुत तरह का उसमें प्रॉब्लम होता है, लेकिन हमको कुछ नहीं हुआ। वो तो ऊपर वाला का करम है, वो तो सबको बचाने वाला ऊपर वाला है, हमको कोई प्रॉब्लम नहीं हुआ।
It seems that God protects Salim's fate. Believing in God's existence can justify this work, since, for believers, God determines their fate. The West may not understand this relationship with God. Salim is a Muslim, but there are also Hindu rickshaw pullers who belong to the lowest rank of the caste system. A society divided, the hardest jobs are maintained for the members of the lowest caste. Caste, prescribed by God, descendants of the god Brahma, from whom the human beings were created. But aren't there castes in the West? Castes justified by another deity, which is not spiritual, but mundane? Calcutta is a city of contrasts, a very symbolic city in India, a city where poverty and wealth are in constant conflict, where the first world and the fourth world embrace. A very symbolic encounter of this conflict between opposites, between the heads and the tails of modern development, can be found in the poorer areas along the railways in the city of Calcutta. British colonization started what is today known as the Second World Employer. More than 1.5 million railroad workers, more than 8,000 passenger trains that cover more than 80,000 kilometers, carrying more than 12 million passengers. A symbol for modern development. These are the heads. The tails are in the poorer areas of Calcutta, next to the flower market and literally on the railways, in abject poverty. Hundreds of people live at the foot of that modernity. Every day they watch the symbol of modernization of a whole country pass right before their eyes. India saw significant economic growth at the beginning of the 21st century. It is not a coincidence that Bangalore is known as India's Silicon Valley, where huge multinational IT corporations develop their activity. The streets of large Indian cities are decorated with names which sound commercial and intimately familiar. Globalization is a religion without borders. What happens in India happens in other countries. Poverty and wealth live together in the same landscape.
The effect of globalization has also entered in India through media, through market forces, and as you know, that the globalization is backed by certain ideology, certain cultural practices. Now, what globalization is doing, that they are reinventing certain traditional aspects for their own benefit. That means to dominate the market forces, to dominate the people in the market, in economic sphere, and make them dependent upon what the globalization preachers are saying. That means in social cultural sphere, certain practices are coming back, and the local politics or the international politics are feeding upon them to dominate the people, to advance in their favor.
The West and the East go hand in hand, and no economic problem today can be considered in a vacuum. What happens today in India is not just local, it is also a global issue. Poverty in India is poverty in the West too. The poverty of the country is not condemned as the exclusive result of Western colonization, but one must recognize the effect of global economic strategies. It is the context of large corporations and also the context of rickshaw pullers. The harsh living conditions of the rickshaw pullers have been hardened by the effects of globalization. Globalization conditions their life.
The rickshawalas are definitely decreasing in number, not for the reason of the state alone, but due to the effect of advanced technology. This may be an effect of globalization. The availability of the small cars, the small passenger cars, have increased over the last 2 decades, and eventually it becomes a status symbol to the middle class people. So every middle class family are trying to obtain at least one car. So day by day, the number of cars are increasing.
The fact that globalization is promoting the elimination of this long-suffering and hard sector of service is not call for celebration, since this results from imbalanced competition and doesn't meet the needs of those active workers. Small companies in the West are also being eliminated in similar fashion, following the principles of survival of the fittest. We should ask this: to what extent are we able to remove ourselves from what we see, to consider it a show for which we feel no responsibility? The afternoon soon starts to shine on Calcutta. Its parks and streets are alive. Millions of people get ready for another sunset on the crammed streets of the city. The shadows start to lengthen. Time passes in a different way in this country.
हाँ हाँ, हमारा देश अच्छा लगता है। हम यहाँ पैदा हुए हैं तो हमको अच्छा नहीं लगेगा। हम बचपना से यहाँ रहे हैं तो हमारा देश बहुत अच्छा लगता है। हम इस देश का वासी हैं, यहाँ हम पैदा हुए हैं, यहाँ बच्चा से हम जवान हुए, बूढ़े हुए, हमारा देश अच्छा है। देहात गांव का तो बहुत दोस्त है जो हमारे गांव ग्राम का है, रिक्शा चलाता है, टैक्सी चलाता है। और उसके अलावा भी है यहाँ का तो एक जगह रहने पर जान पहचान हो ही जाता है, लेकिन खास करके अपना में कोई यहाँ नहीं। रिक्शा के अलावा और कोई काम नहीं करते। इसी में तो सुबह से लेके रात का 11 बज जाता है। सारा दिन तो इसी में कमाता है, तो फिर इसके अलावा दूसरा क्या करेगा? टाइम ही नहीं मिलेगा, और अगर मिलेगा भी तो उसमें मेहनत बर्दाश्त नहीं होगा ना।
The more Salim has talked about his life, and the more we have seen the simple but hard work routine he has, the more questions we have regarding our context. Salim could be understood as an unprotected worker in a difficult work environment full of sacrifice. But how many Salims do we know in the West? How many of them will never retire? How many of them will not have their basic needs satisfied in the near future? The sun sets in Calcutta. Sydney, Shanghai, Barcelona, Kuala Lumpur, Paris, or Hanoi. The world takes its course, turning, indifferent to Salim's life, without noticing where he lives, where he eats, where he sleeps, what he does for a living. A day from sunrise until sunset, during which everything and nothing has happened. At the beginning of this film, we listen to the story of the 6 wise men and the elephant. Men with a great deal of knowledge, but only partial knowledge of everything surrounding them. Sometimes in the West, we easily replace the concepts of spirituality by materialism, harmony by continuous growth, the essence by the mere show, solidarity by competition, complementary oppositions and nirvana by desire. Thus, we watch only a partial reality, but also a distorted one. The West could play the 6 blind men. As we clearly stated at the beginning, we had no intention to try and label what we saw. Questions were considered. Why does a man do such a tough job and live like that? Who does this type of job? The idea was to seek answers by considering Salim's life. A day with his rickshaw. As a team, we documented his life in that month of February 2013. But instead of finding answers, our questions only led to more questions. The intention was to consider Salim's life, but is it possible that we have instead considered how our own Western view sees what Salim does? We have tried to reflect upon how we see the mote in one neighbor's eye and not the beam in one's own. By comparing Salim's world with ours, it became clear that the show was not Salim. What are we doing recording the life of someone who is thousands of kilometers away from our homes? What are we really looking at? The show is not Salim. The real show is us. The world sometimes smiles. It is watching us, puzzled.
You have a house here or what?
Yeah, house. Yeah, house. All time house sleep in, and the hard time they football sleep.
Ah, que cuando hace frío duermen en la casa, sino en la calle. Aquí. Mañana esta noche. You finish at what time?
11 night.
De 9 de la mañana a 11 de la noche. Trabajo todos los días, normalmente.
Go garage and the rickshaw, clothes, and the eating, sleeping. Hola, ¿qué tal?
Ah, come on.